It's 10 o'clock. This is Sky News at 10, our top story. Starmer's unwanted milestone. More than 50,000 migrants have now crossed the channel since he entered number 10. The Israeli military tells Sky News one of the 6 journalists it killed in Gaza was an active member of Hamas, a claim denied by Al Jazeera.
Why is Al Jazeera having terrorists on their payroll working as journalists, and why are terrorists also functioning as journalists?
Tensions rise in the West Bank. A special report on how settler violence is undermining hopes for peace. The White House confirms the Trump-Putin meeting will take place in Anchorage and bats away questions about President Zelenskyy's attendance.
He hopes in the future there can be a trilateral meeting with these 3 leaders to finally bring this conflict to an end.
Guilty of conspiracy to murder, the would-be assassin who flew from the US to kill a shopkeeper in Birmingham. Hot and bothered, this summer's 4th heatwave and warnings of a water shortfall, with farmers worried about crop yields.
They're pretty much planting into dust, worrying that we might not actually be able to get a crop from them is worrying, and it makes you consider whether it's worth doing it.
And we'll take a first look at tomorrow's front pages. That's in our press preview from 10:30 right through to midnight. Hello there, good evening. I'll smash the gangs was the bold promise from Sir Keir Starmer when he entered Downing Street just over a year ago with a pledge to stop the small boat crossings. Tonight, the number of migrants who have made the treacherous journey across the Channel since he became Prime Minister has now exceeded 50,000. Well, 474 migrants arrived yesterday, and Sky News has seen footage of more coming today. It is an unwelcome political milestone, with the figure being reached faster under Sir Keir than his predecessor. Let's have a look at the numbers then. Here's how the number of channel crossings compares under the previous 3 Prime Ministers. Well, this is the picture during Sir Keir Starmer's term so far. It has taken 402 days to reach that 50,000 milestone. That's an average of 125 people making the crossing per day since he took office. In comparison, by Rishi Sunak's 402nd day in office, just over 36,000 people had made the crossing. So how does 2025 compare then with previous years? Well, migrants are arriving at a higher rate than in recent years. You can see that here. Our political correspondent, Tamara Cohen, has this report.
Coming into shore, this rescue vessel takes the number of small boat migrants to over 50,000 under this government. 474 arrived on Monday, according to official figures. Keir Starmer is talking about migration more than ever, and in stark terms. The majority of the Prime Minister's tweets in the past week have been about what he calls illegal migration, plans for detentions, returns, deportations. It's a far cry from 5 years ago when he became Labour leader.
We welcome migrants. We don't scapegoat them. Strengthen our country.
Despite promising to tackle the chaos, it wasn't one of his 5 stated missions in government. After big gains for reform at the local elections in May, Keir Starmer promised a firm crackdown on net migration in general, although he later said he regretted some of his language.
Now, in a diverse nation like ours, and I celebrate that, these rules become even more important. Without them, we risk becoming an island of strangers.
A year in, ministers are still blaming the climbing numbers on the previous government.
Where we've taken our responsibility to work internationally, to change the law, to improve the way in which the asylum system works, to take through legislation to strengthen the powers that are available. The last government did none of those things and focused on gimmicks.
The current strategy is ministers talking a lot about the steps they're taking, banning social media adverts, deporting people, and the agreement with France. But with none of it yet working, some insiders fear that focusing on small boats is just raising expectations that they can't meet.
You cannot simply out-Farage Nigel Farage when it comes to the subject of immigration. In a sense, Labour is falling into precisely the same trap that the Conservatives fell into. They're giving significant prominence to a subject where they don't have much control.
The opposition leader visiting the Isle of Wight, now serving up some even tougher demands.
We need to process people in detention centres. We need to build proper camps where we keep people safe, whether they are migrants or the local communities. But just having people who can stay in a hotel, go out and come as they please, whether or not they're criminals, we have no idea who these people are. I don't think that that's right, and it's gone on long enough.
Last week, warm weather and a familiar sight, leaving voters to question whether Keir Starmer can ever meet his promise to stop the numbers ramping up. Tamara Cohen, Sky News.
A spokesman for the Israel Defence Forces has told Sky News that the Al Jazeera journalist Anas al-Sharif is not this angel people are speaking about, doubling down on allegations that the reporter was a Hamas fighter. The Israeli military insists al-Sharif, on the furthest left here, who was killed alongside 4 other journalists in Gaza City on Sunday, was a member of Hamas's military wing and received a salary from the group. Al-Sharif had rejected the allegations, which Israel made before he was killed. His employer, Al Jazeera, has denied the claims too. But the IDF says its intelligence is solid. Well, this is what its spokesperson, Nadav Shoshani, told us earlier.
The IDF does not target journalists. In this strike from 2 days ago, the IDF targeted a Hamas terrorist, an active Hamas terrorist. His position, he had a few positions in the Hamas terror organization, but he was part of their rocket brigade. He was a head of a cell in their rocket brigade, and that's who we target. And I think the question is to be asked, why is Hamas and why is Al Jazeera having terrorists on their payroll working as journalists, and why are terrorists also functioning as journalists with press justice? I think that those are questions that need to be very alarming, and we need to ask them about what's going on in Gaza. But the IDF does not target journalists.
Well, let's speak to our international correspondent, Diana Magne, who is in Jerusalem. The IDF being quite categoric there, Diana. So where does this leave us?
Right. Well, I mean, targeting journalists is a war crime. So, of course, they say that we do not target journalists. But I think the numbers tell a slightly different story, don't they? We've had a huge number of journalists and media workers killed since the war began in Gaza, more than in any other conflict in that period of time. The Committee to Protect Journalists says it's about 184. The numbers are slightly different wherever you look, but it is a huge number. And you heard there from the spokesperson, he said that they have evidence that Anas al-Sharif was on a payroll for Hamas. They have not provided that evidence. They have provided some evidence that is difficult to verify, which doesn't prove that he was in any way still engaged or engaged currently in active hostilities for Hamas, which would have made him a legitimate target, rather that he may supposedly have joined in 2013, and there are pictures of a telephone number on a Hamas list, all on documents which are unverifiable. And the IDF says that the intelligence is too sensitive to share with us. And if it is the case that Anas al-Sharif was a terrorist, which they haven't proven, the burden of proof is quite high to have targeted him, what about the rest who were killed in that strike, who were also journalists? So I think there are still many questions to be asked. The IDF says we don't justify every strike on every Hamas terrorist that we take out. But we have seen this kind of pattern in their targeting before, where they've targeted a supposed Hamas terrorist and the entire family of that person is killed also. And this seems to be the case in terms of targeting that tent and killing all of the journalists alongside Anas al-Sharif. So I don't think we have a very satisfactory explanation for Israel's strike. It's certainly convenient for them to take out a very prominent voice from Gaza City just as they begin the onslaught on Gaza City. And it also sends out a huge chill to the rest of the dwindling journalistic community, who are trying as hard as they can to send footage to tell the real story of what they see going on the ground in Gaza.
Diana, live for us there in Jerusalem. Thank you. Well, while the eyes of the world are on Gaza, the treatment of Palestinians in the West Bank has worsened. It is an area of land home to roughly 3 million people, which would form the bulk of any future Palestinian state. Hopes for a sustainable long-term peace in the region are being further undermined by illegal Israeli settlements and violence against Palestinians in their occupied land. Well, Well, our chief correspondent, Stuart Ramsey, has a special report now looking at life within the guarded walls.
Israeli soldiers move into Hebron's main market in the centre of the city, herding people away from an area they're about to lock down.
Back.
This is a Palestinian city. It's meant to be off-limit to Israelis. In reality, it isn't. The Israeli Defense Forces act with impunity, were moved 3 times and escorted away from their operation.
What are you doing here?
An IDF soldier told me to come here.
No here. Come with me, come. Come with me.
For now, this part of Hebron is a military zone. Nobody can pass the Israeli lines. Everyone is turned around. An elderly lady wants to retrieve the boxes she uses for the meagre goods she sells on the street. She's turned round. Green screen is erected by the soldiers, and the reasons for this part of Hebron being closed emerge. Settlers and Orthodox Jews want to visit a tomb up the street. They peer into the city streets, past the overwhelming military presence. It might be strange to them, but this community has seen it all before.
What we need from this life, we need our justice, we need our right, and we need our freedom. The same other people and the same other country. We don't need any problem, we don't need, for us, we don't have between Jewish, Christian, Muslim, we're all human people.
The Palestinian city of Hebron is in what is known as Area A of the West Bank. It means it's technically under the full control of the Palestinian Authority. But everyone here says the presence of Israeli soldiers and settlers is designed to make a point, to emphasize who's really in charge. Movement for Palestinians is now so disrupted by security checks and barrier gates locked at will that normal life is effectively suspended. The building of iron gates that close off vehicle entry and exit to Palestinian communities has dramatically increased since the October the 7th Hamas attack on Israel that led to the Gaza war. Beneath the village of Al-Magaya, we watched as IDF soldiers oversaw a digger working on a roadway and a new barrier gate being moved into position from the back of a lorry. My name's Stuart Ramsey. I'm a reporter for Sky News in England.
Okay, and what's the problem here?
No problem. We were just going to go up to the village, but I can see obviously you're putting in a barrier.
Tell you it's not now. Okay, so no,
Walk here.
It's a military territory, so please turn around and go away.
Okay. Could you just explain though? Are you putting in a new gate?
No, sure. This is classified. Please turn around and go away.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
All right. We'll just be up here.
No. So please turn off the camera, turn around and go away. Thank you very much.
Okay, but
Listen, I told you 3 times, this is military territory. Please turn around, turn off the camera and go away.
All right. Can I go to the village though?
No, you can't.
Is there another way round?
Maybe, I don't know.
Okay. Car journeys are characterised by hours-long queues at security checkpoints that are literally everywhere. They can pop up anywhere at any time, and treatment can be arbitrarily unpleasant. In front of us, a man is ordered to show his documents to armed checkpoint guards outside the city of Nablus. He's told to get back in the car. A few moments later, they gesture for him to get out of the car to get the documents back. They're thrown on the floor. He just picks it up and leaves. Britain is one country threatening to recognise the state of Palestine and is calling for a 2-state solution where Israelis and Palestinians live side by side. Yossi Beilin is one of the architects of the original plan. He still believes in it.
We are in a situation whereby both sides need the 2-state solution badly. The Palestinians, because this is the only way for them to fulfill their vision of self-determination. For the Israelis, it is the only way to have a border unless we do it unilaterally. And we already know that unilateral decisions about borders are not usually fulfilled. So we need an agreement about the border in order to assure that Israel is a Jewish and democratic state. Otherwise, we are doomed.
If there is no compromise and no will to reach a settlement that's good for everyone, then Israelis and Palestinians are indeed doomed to a cycle of perpetual conflict. 6 decades on, it seems a breakthrough is as elusive as ever. Stuart Ramsey, Sky News, in the West Bank.
The White House says there's only room for Donald Trump and Vladimir Putin for now to discuss peace in Ukraine. The US and Russian presidents are due to meet in Anchorage in Alaska on Friday without President Zelenskyy. He's highly sceptical of what can be achieved and believes Putin wants Ukraine to withdraw from huge areas currently under its control as part of a ceasefire. Well, here's what the White House press secretary Caroline Levitt said earlier.
This meeting came about because the president of Russia asked the president of the United States to meet through his special envoy, Steve Witkoff, who, as you all know, traveled to Russia to have a conversation with Putin at his request. And so the president is agreeing to this meeting at the request of President Putin. And the goal of this meeting for the president is to walk away with a better understanding of how we can end this war. And the president said at this podium yesterday when he joined all of you in the room that he hopes in the future there can be a trilateral meeting with these 3 leaders to finally bring this conflict to an end. But this administration has really used every lever, has taken every measure to achieve peace through a diplomatic solution. And I think the president of the United States getting in the room with the president of Russia, sitting face to face rather than speaking over the telephone, will give this president the best indication of how to end this war and where this is headed.
Well, speaking tonight, Volodymyr Zelenskyy told a youth forum that Putin and Trump cannot agree to anything without Ukraine being present.
As for the negotiations, in any case, they're important at the leadership level, but it's impossible to talk about Ukraine without Ukraine, and no one will accept that. So the conversation between Putin and Trump may be important for their bilateral track, but they cannot agree on anything about Ukraine without us. I truly believe and hope that the US president understands and realises that.
Bring in our US correspondent David Blevins. So fears of a carve-up consistently quite clear from the Ukrainian president ahead of this meeting in Anchorage, we learnt today, now described as a listening exercise by Mr. Trump.
Yes, a carve-up is President Trump's aspiration, but his press secretary is dealing with reality. Caroline Levitt describing it as a listening exercise where President Trump will seek to gain a better understanding. But there isn't much more to understand. Russia wants territory. Ukraine isn't conceding it. And if that's the case, then Donald Trump's hope of a land swap between the 2 countries is already dead in the water. Unless there is some kind of Trump-Putin pact that seeks to impose a deal upon President Zelenskyy. That is the fear of European leaders who will meet with President Trump virtually tomorrow. They say borders can't be changed by force. Meanwhile, Russia continues to change them by force, seizing more of eastern Ukraine overnight, describing that as a gift to Trump and Putin because they believe it makes it more likely that Zelenskyy will back down. But he's not backing down, and that may explain why the White House is now framing this as nothing more than a fact-finding mission. The only new thing we've really learned from the press conference this afternoon was that it will take place, this summit, in the city of Anchorage, Alaska. So in the place where the sun never sets, the deal might never start.
David Blevins, thank you. A would-be assassin who flew from the US to kill a shopkeeper in Birmingham has been found guilty of conspiracy to murder. 45-year-old Amy Beltro tried to shoot Sikander Ali at point-blank range outside his home in September 2019, but the gun jammed. Sajid Chowdhury has more.
Sikander Ali was getting back to a home he shares with his father. Amy Beltro had been waiting in this parked car for 45 minutes. As he gets out of his car, she approaches pointing a firearm. You won't hear gunshots. That's because the gun doesn't fire. It's jammed, and Ali manages to get away. Beltro was working with these 2 men who have already been jailed for conspiracy to murder. Mohammed Aslam and his son Mohammed Nazir were in a violent business dispute with Ali's family. During a 2.5-week trial, the jury heard Betro had met Nazir on a dating app while she was living in the US. She arrived in the UK 2 weeks before the attempted murder. Betro is around 45 years old. She's originally from West Allis in Wisconsin and told the court she'd slept with Nazir during a visit to the UK from December 2018 to January 2019. Later that year, she returned to Birmingham, where she was immediately involved in a crash for cash scheme in which Aslam profited. Betro fled back to the US on the 9th of September, 2 days after the attempted shooting. Prosecutors said she'd been living in Armenia until earlier this year, when she was extradited to England.
Armenia is not an EU country, so particular arrangements are required for any extradition application, or even prior to that, any request for arrest. So it's a very complex process that not only has to conform with UK law, but also the particular policies and laws of the Armenian authorities.
The court was also played audio recordings of Betro ordering taxis. It's just hours after her gun had jammed.
Hi, can I get a taxi? Pick it up from where?
She uses a fake name.
Okay, can I have your name? Sahi. Sahi? Yeah.
But her American accent is clear.
Where are you going to? East Grove.
She books a taxi to take her back to the crime scene. Having failed in her attempt to murder Ali, Betro is back in his neighbourhood. The prosecution said she'd spent the last few hours goading Ali's father in text messages. This time, the gun fires. 3 shots. No one was home, so there were no injuries. But Betro doesn't know that as she casually walks away.
It's a brazen attempt. Doesn't seem to be a whole lot of effort to avoid detection. I think she fell foul of a really slick, dynamic law enforcement operation over here. I don't know whether that was her perspective from America, that's how we operate, but zero tolerance around firearms criminality on these shores.
The gun was never recovered, but is believed to be the same one being test-fired in this video found on Nazir's phone. Watch it again. Right at the end, the gun jams. The test gun fires the exact same caliber of ammunition found at Ali's home after the shooting. In court, Betro claimed it was all a coincidence. She said the woman in the CCTV and on the taxi company recordings was another American who looked, sounded and dressed just like her. But the jury was convinced otherwise. Sadia Chowdhury, Sky News.
As much of the UK swelters in the 4th heatwave of the summer, there's a warning of what's being described as a nationally significant incident, with 5 areas now officially in drought. A further 6 areas are experiencing prolonged dry weather following the driest 6 months to July since 1976. Our science correspondent Thomas Moore reports.
The 4th heatwave of the year in England and much of the country is parched.
A good 20 mil of rainfall on these right now would be just what they need.
For farmers, it's an arid nightmare. Broadwood Hall Farm in Herefordshire grows organic vegetables, but the lettuce is half the size it should be. There just hasn't been enough rain and the irrigation pond is almost empty.
There's likely to be pressure on prices and just choice in supermarkets. There just might not be as much on shelves. And this will have a knock-on effect into the winter.
The National Drought Group has declared what it calls a nationally significant situation. 5 areas in England are in official drought, stretching from the northwest through Yorkshire and down to the Midlands. Most other areas are enduring prolonged dry weather. The first 6 months of 2025 have been the driest start to any year since 1976. And with the return of hot weather, the little moisture that remains in the soil will evaporate even faster. It is a challenge for farming and our water supplies. This is the Derwent Valley Reservoir in Derbyshire. The banks that should be submerged are gradually being exposed as water levels drop. Nationally, reservoirs are less than 68% full, well below the 81% that would be normal for the time of year. Yet only a matter of months ago, some areas were overwhelmed by rain. Britain just isn't ready for such weather extremes.
There is big plans to build new reservoirs, to increase supplies. The plans are in place, the investment's there. It's just really important that water companies get on and deliver, and we're there to make sure they do.
Farmers in many areas have already been told they can't suck up any more water from rivers to irrigate crops because levels are now so low and critical for wildlife.
It's a massive worry because there's so much money tied up in these crops, and to see them going in, pretty much planting into dust, worrying that we might not actually be able to get a crop from them is worrying, and it makes you consider whether it's worth doing it in the future, because we do have these big fluctuations in weather that we just don't know how to plan from year to year.
All they can do is hope for rain, and there's no sign of anywhere near enough in the forecast. Thomas Moore, Sky News in Herefordshire.
The government has lined up an administrator for Thames Water if it can't secure a bailout from the private sector. Sky News can exclusively reveal that FTI Consulting are being drafted in by the Environment Secretary Steve Reed in case Britain's largest water company collapses. It comes after the firm began a restructuring process at the end of last year. Almost 9 in 10 pharmacies across the country have experienced shoplifting in the last year. The survey carried out by the National Pharmacy Association also found there's been an increase in aggressive behaviour towards staff. Almost 3/4 of those who reported incidents to the police felt the response was insufficient. Now, Swifties have been surprised with the announcement of a new album from Taylor Swift. The Life of a Showgirl will be the star's 12th studio album following last year's release, The Tortured Poets Department. She teased her new music while appearing on a guest on her boyfriend Travis Kelce's podcast. Rugby chiefs have admitted to Sky News the sport could be safer. It comes as the Women's World Cup kicks off next week with new technology hoping to detect potential concussions on the field. Our sports correspondent Rob Harris has the story.
A home World Cup begins next week for England's women. A golden chance to attract new players and fans to rugby union. But the physicality that's a selling point brings dangers. And the realities about the risks from collisions and concussions are now being confronted by World Rugby to Sky News.
Concussion is obviously incredibly serious. It's absolutely our number one priority in terms of understanding why they happen and doing what we can to reduce that. But it is a sport that has a high risk of injury, and that comes from the physical contact nature of the game, which is also what we all love about watching it. And so that can't be ignored. We can't pretend that the sport is incredibly safe.
Far from hiding the issue, they'll be raising awareness for fans in matches. For the first time at a World Cup, these smart mouthguards will flash red if the force and movement from a head impact detects potential concussion. Data sent directly to medics. Players would go off for a head injury assessment.
Do they just sort of rock back on their feet, or are they what we call ataxic, so uncoordinated?
The video analysis being demonstrated at Twickenham, and the test of memory and concentration carried out on me. Asked to remember words and repeat numbers in sequences.
7, 1, 4, 6, 2.
World Rugby believes women are more susceptible to concussions than men. That could be due to physical differences and having less and later access to more technical training.
What can you say to concerned parents who are worried about their young girls in particular during this World Cup then taking up rugby?
I'd say that we've never been in a situation where we know more about what the risk is. That will improve over time. So our job is to give parents the autonomy to make a decision that they can about their daughter's playing. If their daughter wants to play, we want to help them arrive at a decision that they're happy with the level of exposure the daughter has and what they can do about it.
This openness about the health risks of playing rugby could seem surprising, given they're trying to use this World Cup to inspire the next generation of players. And also while rugby authorities are facing legal action from 700 former male players, claiming that rugby was negligent in failing to take reasonable action to protect them from brain injuries. Only 19 former female players across rugby union and league are part of the lawsuit. But concussion concerns cloud the Women's World Cup build-up. Rugby hopes technology breakthroughs provide assurances players seek on safety, rather than the dangers discouraging them. Rob Harris, Sky News, Twickenham.
Well, that was Sky News at 10. Coming up, we will take a first look at tomorrow's newspapers in the press preview tonight, joined by The Spectator's deputy political editor, James Heal, and the journalist and broadcaster, Jenny Kleeman. Welcome to both of you. Among the stories we'll be discussing, this on the front page of The Times. Its headline, Channel boat migrants arriving at a record speed. That and plenty more, of course, when we come back.